Attention all units on this channel. Mass casualty incident over a 6-block area.
We were getting calls from all over the city because it was so massive that people were feeling it everywhere.
The big gaping hole. Mike's office was on the 8th floor on those north windows in the middle of that big gaping hole.
I think you were so taken off guard by just the pure destruction. Could my father be alive? Could he be alive? Because it was just a terrible scene.
I was at school. I went to the office and it was my mom's friend, and I knew it was a problem. We drove to my grandma's house and my whole family was there, and we just waited. That's mostly what I remember, was just waiting.
We came down here looking for her, just yelling her name, walking around just yelling her name.
I was falling, then I hit, and I was dazed for a minute or a few seconds, and I realized there had to be an explosion or something.
I had been buried underneath a rubble pile, and my left arm was sticking out of the pile.
The magnitude of that rubble pile and the remainder of the building, and sounds and the voices and the yells that were coming out of that building, there wasn't any way you could have been out in front and not been motivated just to run up in there and just do whatever you could do.
All of a sudden, there was a sudden impact, and I remember hearing a very loud noise. I was crying, I was sad.
I kept thinking, what if my baby's alive and he's there suffering?
I looked down, there was a toy on the floor, and I'm like, is this some kind of a nursery? And I could hear this little kid whimpering. All of a sudden, 2 little eyes just popped open, and they were covered with, sheetrock dust.
They had actually recovered all living and deceased victims that they could. And now what they were facing were the severely entombed victims in the building. And that's where the requirement for some very specialized capability was needed.
Think of all the police officers and the firefighters, the doctors and the nurses, all of the neighbors and the rescue workers, all of the people who have come to help all of those who were hurt in Oklahoma. There are many more good people in the world than bad and evil people.
It was neat to read the letters and notes from kids from all over the country,
The children were the ones who everyone wanted to protect, but the children seemed to be the ones giving the most healing.
I'll tell you, the one thing you could really feel was just the energy of millions and millions of people thinking about success. They want to see somebody come out of their lives as much as you do.
I hadn't given up hope, but by about day 4, I already knew. It took 16 days for someone to tell me that I would not see my mom again.
People were still uncertain about where their loved ones were. The Family Assistance Center became an information center to offer to the families a supportive, encouraging, nurturing nest that they could wait in.
When my mom left, a big part of me left too. I still think about her every day.
The disaster itself was mind-boggling, but the response was from the community, from everybody that was involved in it, was overwhelming.
You and I may not know each other, but in the time of need, we would help each other. Oklahoma is like that. We are a loving community, the Oklahoma standard.
There was a guy that just said, "Do you need some boots?" He gave me some boots, some steel-toed boots to work in.
There were people walking around with carts that had pizza boxes, and they were just handing out pizza boxes to us.
This is all going to go to downtown, and they can use
Every possible need was being filled by folks in the area just pitching in.
Even though we all have our differences, at least we can come together as one to help someone. I mean, I want to feel like I'm helping somebody. And if it takes me to donate a little blood to get someone's help, then I'm willing to do that.
This one guy stood up and took a dollar bill out of his pocket, and he waved it in front of me. He said, "Governor, do you know what this is?" "Yeah, that's a dollar bill." He said, "No, it's an Oklahoma dollar.
And in Oklahoma, dollar's the dollar that I brought with me, and it's the same dollar I'm leaving with. I never had to spend a cent for anything. This is the most incredible place on earth.
At the scene, we're processing every bit of evidence that is there. We literally are taking every component that we can find within a 10-block area.
The defendants were people who tried to destroy our system, who didn't believe in it, but that's where you can take particular pride in respecting the rules of our system.
This was going to be the biggest case in the history of at least Oklahoma and perhaps America. And so it was important for the public to perceive that these persons had good lawyers.
There was the human emotion of dealing with the people who were actually victimized by the crime. And no matter what your situation, how tough you have to be as a prosecutor, you can't help but relate to people who've gone through the biggest tragedy one could ever imagine.
And I thought it was important for that courtroom to know what happened to us, the impact that it had to us, because it changed us. Our lives were never the same after that.
It was a form of justice, knowing that someone would be held accountable.
You got to remember what people were applauding wasn't us, it was that the system worked.
Justice is served!
The trials provided an end to the legal part and allowed people to truly get on with healing, to experience a great memorial, to have a place where they could come and remember not the horror, but the love.
Violence really doesn't work. It doesn't. It backfires on you because people get the other way, and I think that's what this memorial kind of depicts: is hey, we're here and we're still going.
The memorial is important to me because I feel close to my mom here.
You need to tell this story about Oklahoma City. You need people to understand what happened here. This is a story of resilience and overcoming a tragedy.
The first most important thing is to learn what happened. And then is to speak out and do the right thing. That you actually can, make a difference.
And it's hard getting through the 19th, but there's something about the marathon that is so joyous and gives us such a reason to celebrate.
It's just so cool to see the city coming together again and people across the country coming to this race, leaving their medals that they worked so hard for on the chairs. That's amazing, and it's so heartwarming, and just to know people haven't forgotten.
I get to run for the people who died and the people who survived, and I feel really proud of myself and proud of everyone there.
For the Thunder, anything we can do to support the efforts of the memorial. It's important for us to understand the heritage and what came before us. We started a process of bringing all of our players to the museum and the memorial. We've been able to do everything we can within our power to support the families and honor the memories of their loved ones, and by wearing this uniform, it's another opportunity for us to do that.
The sun rose on April 20th, 1995. It's gonna rise tomorrow. And so just whatever life throws at you, really, you gotta take it for what it is and keep moving, and success is the only option.
It's a habit, I can only think positive. I don't have time to think about the negative things.
This also starts with, how do I change myself so that I can create a new space, so that we can meet each other and something new can happen and we can share life, find the questions that we have in common as we walk forward.
We believe it's very important for our students today who were not alive at the time of the bombing to understand our state's history, those lessons related to that history, to do whatever it takes to stay united as a state.
Having a reminder of things that happened in your life is always positive, always. It keeps you grounded. This museum should keep everyone a little grounded. Tough things happen to kids, adults, everyone, every day. And you can either use all of that pain and agony as an excuse to give up, or you can use it as a motivator to know that tomorrow can be better. That's why the memorialization matters. You can see some of the terrible things, but then you can see all the great things that happened afterwards.
Well, you've heard our story. Horrible things happen on this site, but one thing we do know is that this world holds far more good than bad. Now it's your turn. What's your call to change?